introduction. We have had a formal business relationship with Alliance Solution Group for several years now, and have enjoyed a lot of wonderful successes, both with our clients and your clients. And so with that, I'm going to get started. If you guys have any questions, as Tim said, please feel free to ask. I'm going to start with a quick little video, and then I'm going to jump into a PowerPoint. So if y'all can't hear anything, let me know, and we'll go from there. Here we go.
Meet Owens. He runs a growing business with mobile employees and resources scattered remotely across multiple projects. Business is booming, but Owen is struggling to manage the growth. His overhead is rising just as fast as his revenue. The mobile workforce is spending more and more time pushing paper and less time getting work done. Management has files of inaccurate field reports, and on any given day, they may not even know who or what will be where. This leaves Owen's team guessing about labor, assets, productivity, and the timing of their projects. Reports and timesheets are coming in from the field with information that is unrealistic, unreliable, and sometimes even unreadable. Poor Patty is left having to chase down and validate the correct information. Every day, Owen and his team have to make decisions using outdated and inaccurate information. They only find out after the fact how much their guesswork is costing the company. His company needs a better way to accurately measure and manage mobile resources. In other words,
all right. So that's just kind of get you started and get you interested. So again, thank you for your time. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how reducing your direct labor costs can be greatly enhanced using automation. My company, AboutTime Technology, has been in business since 2003. We have 4 founding principals of the company. 2 of them came out of the construction industry. 2 of them were software developers. And they faced a challenge similar to a lot of what we'll talk about today. They faced a challenge of collecting time for field employees, tracking assets, tracking productivity, tracking weather, a lot of different things. And then they went to market and they didn't find anything they liked, so they built it. We've been doing that since 2003. We have about 1,500 clients today across the United States, from your big Baker Triangles of the world all the way down to your small mom and pop shops. What I see when I talk to 95 to 99% of the people that I talk to on a daily basis is this thing right here, this nasty little timesheet. And whether it is paper or whether it is Excel, it has been the industry standard for years. Sometimes the Excel can be a little bit more detailed. It can have a little bit more granularity to it. The problem that I see here, and the problem that I see when I talk to people, and the problem that I hear is front center in your face. If you look at these individuals, you see the days of the week, you see the employee names, you see the employee numbers, you see their rate of pay, you see their total hours worked. You see broad brushstrokes of hours for each employee. You see for Mike Brown, the supervisor, he's got 8 hours every day that week. You see for Manuel Mendez, you see for all of those guys down below, 10 hours per day, right? I would assume, and I would make this assumption, and every time I have this conversation with my clients, this is true, is that Mike Brown, who's the superintendent, is very good at what he does. But Mike Brown doesn't do this daily. Mike Brown waits until the end of a payroll week, and he fills these hours in. He doesn't remember when Manuel showed up on Monday, on Tuesday, on Wednesday, or Thursday, or Friday. He doesn't remember when he left. So he scrambles through his Excel or his timesheet. He fills these in, and he submits them to his payroll associate and on down the road. So there's a big labor dollar value here that's at risk, that could not be accurate, that may have some lost time in it, that may have that it may not be as accurate as it could possibly be if you were to introduce automation. So all of these customers that you see here, these are clients that are currently our clients that are out in the world. We took them from that environment. We took them from a paper or Excel environment, and we gave them an automated solution to look at and get granular on direct labor hours, right? You could talk to any one of these. Go ahead.
Jeff, it might be me. I just still see your timesheet screen. There you go.
Okay.
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 Good. Thanks.
All right. So with all of these guys, if you were to talk to them, they would tell you that before they were in the Stone Age. They used paper, they used Excel, and today they're using AboutTime, and it has transformed the business. Because we impact business, we impact direct labor costs in a multiple of ways. First and foremost, we can reduce the amount of hours that I showed you on that timesheet. If you can have somebody punch in and punch out at the end of the day, I can tell you when they got there, I can tell you when they left. And that in and of itself, on a daily basis, reduces those hours. If I can then have an employee assign themselves to a task, and we can track that task, then I can start to tell you about productivity. And I will get into this further as we go. We have designed the technology to be extremely simple in the field, but powerful in the office. When Tim tells you that they're resellers of Sage 300 construction and real estate and Sage 100 contractor, we have a direct interface that is built into that technology. So we are eliminating keying of duplicate data from the ERP, from the Sage software, to AboutTime. So when I say simple in the field, I say that we have an application that resides on a mobile device, be it Android or iOS, and that a supervisor or a project manager or an employee can access this data with a simple 4 to 12-digit code. It's as easy as going to the ATM and withdrawing cash. If you can do that, you can use our technology. Another thing that I hear all the time is that my guys are afraid of technology. My guys are afraid of technology. I would argue that in the construction industry, all field labor hours, all hourly, everybody that's out there in the field working for you has learned a skill, has learned a trade, and has learned through practice and muscle manipulation how to perfect the craft that they are doing. Be it painting, be it finishing, be it scaffolding, be it whatever. They're doing that repetition over and over and over. AboutTime provides the training and the resources to instill that muscle memory in your field employees so that they are doing this, so that we have an adoption rate of using the technology that is greater than 99%. So it's simple in the field, it's powerful in the office. We have one solution that addresses many different types of needs in the field. So we have time. I can track time for you. We have assets. That's what we call equipment. We can track assets, equipment. We can track them by the job, by the task, by the individual. We have forms. I can eliminate any paper that you're using out in the field today, a safety inspection, a job inspection, a performance report, a change order report, any type of paper that's out in the field today. I can automate it and put it on the same device that an employee would punch into and punch out of. We've got reporting, we've got analytics, we've got the ability for you to be able to look at, from an administrator's perspective or from a foreman's perspective, the ability to look at a job and a task based on budgeted hours versus actual hours worked. When you combine all these things, that's where you get the horsepower, that's where you get the ability to reduce your direct labor costs. Any questions so far?
No questions yet.
Okay, perfect. When we talk about tracking real time, we're talking about increasing accuracy, right? We're talking about the fact that we know when Jeff Ward showed up, we know when Jeff Ward left. We know that we could put an auto lunch in for Jeff Ward so he doesn't have to continually mess with the device. We know that we can set in grace periods or rounding rules or any type of workflow to increase the accuracy of the time that's collected in the field. We also know that we are eliminating paper. By eliminating paper, by eliminating that Excel spreadsheet, we are eliminating the opportunity for human error. When I talk to companies on a daily basis, they have a big, powerful ERP. They have Sage 300. They have Sage 100. They don't have a time collection system. They have Excel. They have a spreadsheet. So the workflow kind of goes, well, we've got a job in Sage. We create it in there, and then somebody has to put that into an Excel, and then that somebody's got to email that Excel out to the project manager, who emails it to the foreman, who then emails it to the supervisor, and the supervisor is responsible for his crew's time. And the supervisor's out there in the field, and he fills that out, and he fills out the job, and he fills out the task, and he fills out the hours, and then he scrambles to send that to the foreman, and then the foreman approves it, and then he scrambles to send it to the project manager, and then the project manager approves it, and then the project manager scrambles to get that to the payroll associate. Whenever you're in a rush, you can make errors. I do it myself every day. Whenever you're handling data multiple times, you have the introduction of human error. Again, we are very good at what we do, but we can have errors that come up every day. If you're looking at paper, if you're in that type of environment, I would argue that everybody's handwriting style is different. 2s begin to look like 7s, 7s begin to look like 9s, and your payroll associate is having to read 30, 40, 100 of these each week. So there's a lot of opportunity for error, right? That's not even talking about tracking the assets. That's not even talking about having the ability to track the assets like you track employees. The other nice thing about automation is now in the system, we can set up the ability to alert project managers, foremen, supervisors when there's a condition that exists out in the field that is not conducive to work. So let's say, here's an example. What if you have a job that you're on and that job has some weather requirements that you cannot come outside of those requirements for safety concerns, for OSHA reasons? We have the ability to put notifications and alerts out to project managers when a job is outside of the weather specifications for that day. So now the crew doesn't even leave the house because the supervisor is proactive enough to call or email his employees and say, hey guys, the wind is blowing 60 miles an hour today. There's no way we're putting up the crane. Stay home. Or what if we have an alert now that tells us that on this job, we are over budgeted hours. 9 times out of 10 in a paper or Excel environment, you don't know where you are in regards to budget until after the fact, until after payroll is run. We give you the ability to see that day in, day out in real time. We give you the ability to have a daily approval of work, of budgets, of anything that's out there in the field. So that automates efficiency. We are eliminating the bottleneck of Monday morning of 50 to 100 timesheets coming in and having to key in or make the 4 transactions to take it from a raw time card all the way to getting it ready to enter those hours into the Sage ERP. This is an example of the simplicity of the technology, right? We got large in-your-face buttons, right? If you can hit a 10-penny nail with a 12-ounce hammer, you can use this device. We've got it so that we've got workflows that can be set up so that if you desired, you can have an employee punch themselves in or out from their own device, from a supervisor's device, from a laptop, from a desktop, you name it. Or we've got workflows that can be designed where a supervisor, foreman, or project manager can punch in a crew of employees at one time. If you wanted to, we can have an employee punch themselves in the morning, out in the afternoon. A supervisor could come back and allocate their time per task at the end of the day. Or if you would like, we have the ability to have an employee punch into a task. Once they complete that task, punch into the next task. Once they complete that task, punch into the next task. So what you have is the availability of having very flexible workflow to address any type of job, location, or task that you may see in the construction industry. Because every job is different. Every site is different. Every nuance in the construction industry is difficult because you've got some areas that have cell or Wi-Fi connectivity. You have areas that are remote. You have areas that are on the 38th floor of a building in downtown Houston, Texas. Everything is different, right? So we understand that. That's been part of our success, that we have developed this to have workflows that can address all of the conditions in the environment of the construction industry. That's why paper and Excel have been so successful for so many years, because of those differences, because of the nuances, because technology hasn't been there to address those complexities until today. When we talk about employee time, we can do a number of things. First and foremost, we can give you real-time visibility into when somebody punches in and when somebody punches out. So first and foremost, I could take that example of those 10 hours that you saw on that timesheet, and maybe it's 9.5 hours for that day. Maybe it's 8. Maybe it's 9 hours and 50 minutes, but we don't know unless we can actually see real time when the employee punched in and when the employee punched out. So that's one way we can impact direct labor. The second way, and this is where I get a lot of clients that are excited, is tracking productivity. So in your ERP, you may or you may not have the estimating module. If you do, great. And I would highly recommend that you have it, because you have the ability now to estimate a job. But what do you do? What do you do if you're in paper or Excel environment? You don't have the ability to figure out if that estimate is accurate, again, until after payroll is run, after the fact. AboutTime technology has been set up so that we can track actual hours, and we can tie them to those jobs, to those tasks, to those phases, to those cost codes. So now when Jeff Ward punches in at job 1500 on the 38th floor, and he's going to be a pipe fitter for 2 hours, I can track him. I can see that he punched in at 8 o'clock in the morning, and at 10 o'clock he punched out, and then he punched into an apprentice welder from 10 to 1, and after that he punched in to be a supervisor welder from 1 to 5. In those different cost codes, in those different tasks, you've got budgeted hours that are there. Now I can show you in real time on a daily basis, so you have 100 hours budgeted, this is the amount of work that was completed that day. Now you have the ability to make a decision as to where your direct labor hours are based on where you are in that job. Now you don't wake up at the end of a payroll week as a project manager and go, holy moly, my job is underwater. I'm now costing my company money. what the heck do I do? You know, in the construction industry, as I talked about, there are nuances to the job, to the people, to the geographical boundaries of each job, right? So we have built into the device the ability to look at and see where an employee has punched in or punched out based upon GPS and geofencing. So now I can put in a fence, if you will, that says if Jeff Ward punches in or out at the end of the day, my project manager, my owner, would get an alert that says Jeff Ward is outside of the location that he's punching in at. Okay, Jeff, you bringing me a Starbucks coffee? What were you doing, right? I know where they are when they punch in, when they punch out. We have facial authentication. I can go in, I can take a picture of an employee at the time of hire. That goes into my database. When an employee punches in or punches out, we can set up the workflow to take a picture of that employee when they punch in or when they punch out. And as payroll is approving time, they can look at and verify that Jeff Ward punched in for Jeff Ward. He may need to shave, but he punched in for himself. If that doesn't work, we've got the ability to bring a biometric solution to the table to capture time. I see biometric solutions needed for companies that have a large employee set, 400, 500 employees. I see biometrics needed when management, CFO, payroll administrator understands that there is buddy punching that exists out there in the field. I see biometrics needed when you want to make sure that the person who is punching in is the person who they say they are. And we capture that through a thumbprint, right? You put your thumbprint on a device, it recognizes the fingerprint, you've got that captured. That's a little bit about how that works. We can also set up workflows so that an employee could punch in for themselves and at the end of the day could say, yes, I did work 8 hours, through our employee feedback questions at the end of a shift that we can put into the technology. Or I worked 10 hours, or I was not injured on the job, or I completed this many units. We can also have a supervisor approve time in the field for these individuals. So by the time your payroll associates see the time, they can have a record of it being approved. Now it's time and it's ready to go into payroll. Here you can see is kind of an example of the GPS allocating the right work, where you can see where they punched in, where they punched out of. You can see what jobs they were at. You can see total drive time if you would like. If you were in a situation where you have your guys going from point A to point B to complete a task, you could have them punch into a bucket, if you will, that's called drive time. So when they punched in, you see them at that one job. They drive to the next job, they punch in, you see them there. They punch into a different task. In fact, I'm talking to a painting company right now where they have basically two cost codes. They have a cost code for regular painting, and they have a cost code for drive time. So when an employee starts in the morning, they punch into drive time. They drive for however long period of time it is to get them to that job. They get to the job, they punch into the painting cost code. They do that work. When they complete, they punch into the drive time cost code. They go to their next job, and that's how they do it. And so on and so on and so on. We also have the ability to do basically all that I've talked about with assets. So equipment can be assigned to location. It can be assigned to a task or cost or phase. It can be assigned to an employee. So now you have the ability to know that Jeff Ward has the T9 bulldozer, or Jeff Ward has the shovel, or Jeff Ward has the screwdriver, because it was assigned to him by his foreman. No longer are you losing assets out in the field. You know where they are. You know the hours that have been applied to those assets during the day. Again, like I said, you can assign them per location, per job, per employee. You can even put a GPS location with the clock, so you know that they are on the job they're supposed to be on. You have the ability to tell you where they're at when they're punched in from that device. So let's go back to productivity. Again, in a lot of environments that we see, I was talking to a heavy highway contractor today, and about a 200 employee company. Today they're using paper, and today they don't even have an estimating software. Today the estimating software, or the estimation, is done in Excel. And so as I talked to him today, I was learning this information, and I was like, well, you know, I'm very happy that you guys are at least using Excel and that you're doing some estimating there. And as we talked, he kind of shared with me that in his industry, they're lucky if every 3 to 4 years they do extremely well, every 3 to 4 years they break even, and then they have years where they lose money based on the way their current environment is today. And I said, well, you know, I believe firmly that if you were to have an estimating module and then tie that with actual hours worked, I could make you lean and mean for jobs that you're doing both now and in the future, right? Because we all have a situation where we may want to take that job to keep our employees busy, and we may not make as much money on it, or we may have to give up a little bit of money to win that job and make it up in change orders, right? So this gives you the ability, when you're budgeting or estimating a job, to know actual hours worked or units produced, where you're at in regards to that job. So next year you get a job, you get a similar job location, you get a similar set of tasks. You can look back and say, oh yeah, we know that when we estimated that task to take 100 hours, it took 80 hours. We need to get competitive. We can trim down that estimate to 80 hours or 85 hours. Leave a little bit of fluff in it, but you have that ability now. This is kind of cool because when I do an employee feedback question, I can ask my employee at the end of a shift, how many units did you produce? How many square feet of concrete did you finish? How many square feet of paint did you apply? How many linear feet of molding did you put in today? You could ask this on a numeric basis. And you can see it in our control center. You can see you can also see from the device, by pulling up on the device, you can see exactly where things are in regards to that estimated budget. Here's kind of an example of on-demand productivity, where you can see your hours worked by individuals. You can see units produced by individuals, or if you would like both, you can see it both. However you would like to have it addressed to you, you can see it that way. When we have jobs out in the field, we also may have customers or subcontractors or materials that are delivered, right? And we need to be able to get that information out in the field daily. So we have developed, in the technology, we have a lot of different ways to track whatever's going on in the job environment. So we can have the ability for supervisor or employee to enter field notes. We can have the supervisor or employee enter photos from the job. And what we found is that it's pretty interesting how that information can help a company. We had a situation where we had a company take some photos of some existing work that they had completed, and about a year later, a warranty issue arises, and the customer calls our client and says, "Hey, we've got an issue with this fixture. We need you to come fix it." And the supervisor, the serviceman, takes a look at the picture of the work that was completed, because we can keep that in our technology, and then he goes out there and he looks at the fixture that was in instance supposed to be broken. And they realized that the fixture that they were looking at was a fixture that somebody else had installed, and it was not even their work. And then they said, "Well, thank you, and we're glad to fix this for you if you would like. However, this was not our work." So they didn't have warranty work. They were actually able to bill for it if that client had chosen to have that done. You know, again, this may be getting a little bit redundant, but again, I think that it's very important that you have real-time visibility into where your tasks are based on budgeted hours and units produced. So as a project manager, I have the ability to log into my device and see where my jobs are based on real-time visibility into productivity. Here again is what we've talked to before. Forms Express is the ability to take any type of field data or field paperwork and automate it, make it electronic. So when I talk about this, I'm talking about that a project manager or foreman may have to take a job site safety report with him on a Monday. And he may have to fill it out and fill out who was in attendance and fill it out and talk about what they talked about and write it down, and you've got the handwriting there, you've got all of that there, and then that form rides around with that foreman until he's back in the office. And that may take a week, that may take a day, it may take 3 days, who knows. But we have the ability to put that on the device. So now the foreman rolls in on a Monday morning, he has his safety meeting, he pulls up the device, he pulls up that form, and he said, "I had 10 people in participate." We talked about hard hats, we talked about extension cords, we talked about ladders. Fill out what he talked about. I have the ability to have each crew member sign that document and submit it. And so now that document is already back in corporate office by 5 o'clock today, not riding around in a truck with a supervisor that could potentially get lost. What if there was an OSHA inspection or an OSHA audit that came? How would you guys be able to put your hands on that type of documentation? How quickly could you put your hands on that documentation? And this is basically a before and after. What you can see here in the before picture is different handwriting, right? I'm going to have to be able to understand every single one of my foreman or my project manager's handwriting. I have to be able to read it. I'm going to have to be able to get my hands on those documents. I have to make sure that they've got those documents on their person whenever they're out in the field. They forget something, they've got inefficiency, they've got to go back to the office and get it. Now I can make it electronic. Now I can clearly, easily be able to read through 10 or 15 forms and not have to look at the different types of handwriting that exist by supervisor, by project manager. Any questions so far?
No questions yet?
Very good, very good. Here's an example, right forms, right way for the right employee. So here's an example of a roofing labor report. So we've got day of the week, we've got the date. We've got safety problems, and these can be filled in and customized based upon your needs. They can be customized based upon the type of information you're wanting to collect, the type of job. There's no limitations to the type of ways that these forms can be created. It can be materials delivered. I can have an employee signature. I can have a client signature. I can have a supervisor's signature. I can take a picture. All of this can go into this form and be sent back to the office with a click of a button. So let's talk about why this automation can be so critical to an organization. AboutTime technology is not an ERP. I'm not a Sage 300. I'm not a Sage 100. I don't do accounts receivable, accounts payable, general ledger. What I do is mobile resource management. And I would argue that I am the best in the business at what I do. If I wouldn't have 15 clients, I wouldn't still be in business for over 12 years and going through an economy that crippled a lot of the construction industry if I wasn't extremely good at what I do. So when I talk about that, we're talking about integration. I'm talking about our experience, our ability to integrate with your ERP. We do it with several hundred, right? I'm talking about the ability to add implementation, build an interface that takes you and takes that information that you key into your Sage product, and it automatically pulls it into our control center. And from the control center, it automatically pushes that out to the devices. So no longer am I keying the job 1500, task 2112, employee Jeff Ward into a Sage ERP, but then also recreating it into Excel. Now I'm keying it into Sage. Now there's a port that's pulled. It pushes into AboutTime technology. I've eliminated a step. Now it pushes from AboutTime technology into our mobile app. I've eliminated a step of emailing those Excel spreadsheets to the project managers, to the supervisors. Now the employee punches in and punches out and hits our button that syncs it with the control center. I've eliminated having to have an employee fill out a timesheet and turn that in on a Monday. Now I've got supervisor's approval. I've got employees' approval. I've got the associates who's handling payroll locked and loaded. They've approved it. They take an Excel. They pull it out. They do an export from our system. They import it into Sage for payroll, and you're done. I'm talking about integration. And that is how it all works. The way I see it, it is about time to automate the way you collect data in the field. It is about time to better manage your direct labor hours. It is about time to understand where your estimates are in regards to actual hours. And that is it for me. It's about time for me to be quiet. I do greatly appreciate your time. If there are any questions, if you would like to have a further or deeper dive into our technology, please get with your Alliance Solutions Group rep, and Tim could guide you there and be more than happy to take you into a much deeper dive of AboutTime technology. Thank you very much.